Hello, and welcome to the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. This is John Goodwin, your host. This podcast is dedicated to the aspiring writer or artist and will provide inspiration and tips from top professionals in the field, along with contest winners. And we've got 3 amazing contest winners. And what makes it super amazing is this is the ultimate of the United Kingdom. So we have all 3 of the recent volumes represented here. We have J.L. George with her story Catching My Death. So that's Jess, and that's in volume 36. In volume 37, we have Dan Watson, who was the grand prize winner that year with his amazing illustration of how to steal the plot armor. And then from this year, from just a very lovely story called Lilt of a Lark, Michael Panter. So welcome all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much.
So Jess, since you've been waiting the longest to come here to the United States for this, having to wait out the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So both at dinner time, we were talking, both myself and Emily, just, we love your story. You know,
Thank you so much.
it was great. So Catching My Death obviously isn't one of those fun fairy tales. It's you're more into the dark fantasy. Is that your normal bent that you like to write?
Yeah, I tend to do a little bit of sort of darkish contemporary fantasy and a little bit of near future sci-fi. Yeah.
So explain a little bit, like, when I read the story, it was like, it's so appropriate for the story, but you would have no idea what she thought of and what she came up with the story. So a bit about your story.
Okay, so yeah, it really started from just taking the phrase "catching my death," which, you know, is the sort of thing, if you go out without a coach, at least in the UK, your mum says you'll catch your death. Yeah. Just taking it literally and kind of envisioning the death as a creature, and that was where it started. And it just kind of, I just started building up a little world around that, about, you know, what it would mean if you could see how someone was going to die, or at least a vague idea of it, and how that would affect their life and their chances.
Yeah, and then swapping out, that was like, whoa. So anyway, it's a super way cool story, and we really enjoyed it because Emily and I, my wife, I'm the president of Galaxy Press, and she's the vice president of public affairs. So we proofread the books before they get go to the press. So we really enjoyed that proofread that we did there. Okay, so now Dan. Like I
Hello.
said, you were the grand prize winner there of the Illustrator contest for volume 37. So in How to Steal a Plot Armor, it's a brilliant, I mean, it's just amazing art that you did there. So a bit about your art, please. What you like to do and how you paint.
Yeah, sure thing. I love painting. I love painting for books mainly. I've also done games. I've had a recent piece for Warhammer that just came out with the Black Library. I've
That's
done
cool.
some internal pieces for Brandon Sanderson, who I think was a past writer and now judge.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've done some games work for Monty Cook Games too. And yeah, my work ranges from fantasy, sci-fi, horror, and
this one here you did here on the How to Steal a Plot Armor, that's fantasy. So that's just like, so for me, what really struck me was the depth that you created. So your colors, you've got all these dark colors, but it's just the detail you're able to create on your art is just amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, a big inspiration of mine was N.C. Wyeth, who's a golden age illustrator, and I love his colors so much. I've done so many studies of him, and I've tried to do a spin on his work just because Luke Wildman's story was so adventurous and so fun. I just tried to make it a bit more modern and give it like a fresh look.
Which was amazing how you did that. Now, Michael, Lilt of a Lark, just as hers just really captured my attention on Catching My Death, was just like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming there. Yours was such a fun story to read.
Glad you liked it.
I am too.
Yeah.
But then actually, you should be most glad that the judges liked it.
Yes.
They're the ones that did the voting.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm also very happy.
Okay, good. A little bit about your story that you did there in Lilt of a Lark.
Yeah. So started. I was just listening to a piece of music one day and thought about how it can have a big impact on people's moods. As you said, certain pieces of music can make you melancholic, certain can make you very, very happy and energetic. So I took that idea and thought, what if, kind of similar to what Jess said with hers, what if quite literally there was someone who could sway someone else's mind or make them do things through the power of music? And out of the sort of brainstorming sessions came a guy, a bard, I guess, because I knew it was going to be a secondary world fantasy, and bards are obviously almost well, they have a special place in fantasy, right? So I came out with him, and then it was all about, okay, well, how does he make people do things, right? And so it was time to get a bit clever with the lyrics, and okay, well, he can make them do things, but only if he sings particular songs about them or about what he wants them to do, and it's sort of an amalgamation of his talents. But as you said, he's not the most well, he hasn't been put through the ringer, so he's prone to mistakes, and that coupled with the ability to make people do stuff at will for your lyrics makes for an interesting story, or so I thought.
A very interesting story. So the judges.
Yeah, clearly, yes, yeah, thankfully.
So now, Jess, you've got a PhD. So a little bit about that specifically, because it very much ties into what science fiction and fantasy is all about.
Okay, sure. So I wrote my PhD on the uses of evolutionary theory in the work of H.P. Lovecraft and Arthur Machen, who you may or may not have heard of, but he was a Welsh author who was very influential upon Lovecraft. Comes from Caerleon, which is about 10 minutes from where I grew up. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, H.P. Lovecraft, and I don't know the other author you're talking about, but are they both horror, dark fantasy?
Yeah, Machen, kind of being a little bit earlier, came out of the Victorian Gothic, really. He wrote kind of much more straightforwardly supernatural kind of Gothic fiction. And then Lovecraft, of course, brought in the kind of, I guess, gave birth to the genre of sci-fi horror as we know it, really.
Exactly. And just as a point, and I'll show you afterwards on this, because between dinner and now, which we just had together, there's a book. It's either about or by Lovecraft, and it had letters, H.P. Lovecraft letters in there, where he talks about L. Ron Hubbard's fear that was one of the books that inspired him to write horror. Tim Powers he said, look at this. He's when it showed us thing, because he's a total Lovecraft fan, as you by now know.
Not surprised.
And but anyways, that's great, because it's he obviously made a major influence, like you said, in modern horror. Yes. So now, Dan, so what type of your career trajectory as an artist? Can you describe that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So it was a little bit up and down for a while. So I loved to draw as a kid, but then as I got into school, which would be secondary school for us, I think that's middle school or high school here, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
My art teachers really didn't like the kind of stuff I was drawing, and they just wouldn't grade my work if I handed that in. Actually, they gave me sheets of paper of stuff I was allowed to draw, and that put me right off. So I was going more towards the engineering and design route, because they were teaching technical drawing, and even though it was technical, they'd still let me draw what I'd want to draw. Which is why I ended up going into mechanical engineering as a career, and I was doing an apprenticeship for that.
Yeah.
I was going to college for that as well. And it just wasn't creatively fulfilling, really.
So what gave you that courage to jump from like what everybody knew was right for you to what you knew was right for you?
I think it was all the stories that I'd read, like all the writers and all my favorite stories, like Brandon Sanderson, like Mistborn, I think, like really got me interested in illustration just because of the images it put in my head.
Which is amazing. I mean, you're just such a brilliant illustrator. It's just to think that could have been just, he draws really good buildings. Yeah. So.
And now you're working with Sanderson, right? Or you said you did a bit of work with him.
Yeah, that's right.
That's insane.
Yeah, thank you. I've got 2 pieces that are going to be in the end paper for one of his upcoming leather bounds for Alloy of Law.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we just presented the general, did the keynote speaking at the awards ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
his two favorite authors are Brandon Sanderson and Orson Scott Card, and he was hoping they would, either one of them would be here.
Oh, yes.
Scott Card was here a few years ago, as was Brandon. But fortunately, Brandon now needs to deliver on his $42 million Kickstarter.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And Scott Card is teaching. He's a professor, so he's teaching right now. But Brandon sent a leather-bound set of The Way of Kings that he autographed for the journal for his birthday, and the end papers are just so beautiful. He's got such quality work on these leather bounds that Brandon does. So that's quite a it's even more so recognition for your quality of art that you're in, that you're creating his end papers and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're amazing books, and I'm so proud to be a part of them.
Yeah.
I think he will be launching a Kickstarter for that as well, though
Really?
I doubt it's going to be this year. With his, I don't know, maybe he's written another novel and he's going to launch another Kickstarter for that by the end of the year.
And he's going to make good on his.
He's got to make good on his 4 secret novels first. So.
Yeah. So, Michael, what's been your trajectory as a writer?
Yeah, so I have always, right from the very, very start of my life, as far back as I can remember, put it that way, I have always written and wanted to write. When I was very, very young, I would write with pen or pencil and paper on my bedroom floor, and then I think it was actually after Star Wars: The Phantom Menace came out that I decided. I watched it at the cinema. I got home, and I thought, I'm going to write the sequel to that. And I thought in my 7-year-old brain that I would write the sequel. It would, fly off to Hollywood or to George Lucas, and that would be the second film. I was like, well, I can do this. So I did it, and he didn't. Obviously, he chose to make Attack of the Clones instead. But fun fact,
you sent him the manuscript?
Well, I tried. I gave it to my mum to send. I very much doubt she actually sent it, since it was just pages and reams and reams and reams of a 7-year-old scrawly handwriting. But Attack of the Clones, up until a few years ago, was actually the lowest rated Star Wars film on IMDb. So I'm not saying I would have done it better, but there's something to be said for the fact that I could possibly have had a shot. But yeah, anyway, so I did that, and then from there I continued to write and got better and better and better. And then about 4 years ago, I decided to have a serious crack at writing properly, kind of you get serious about it and start entering competitions and stuff. And I found Wattpad.com, which is like an online sort of anyone can upload a book there, and anyone can read, and they're free to read. And they have like an annual awards, and my novella that I'd written for that won their annual awards, which was really good. So then I after that success, I then I want to take a step up. So I just Googled the sort of best writing competitions in the world within sci-fi and fantasy, because that's kind of exclusively what I write in. And top of the list was Writers of the Future. So that sort of led me into, I was like, okay, well, this seems huge.
Yeah.
Let's have a go at that. And here I am.
Oh, good. Well, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so now, Jess, your trajectory as an author.
So I started telling stories when I was quite small. I kind of had a recurring cast of dinosaurs, which I would regale my dad with stories of. And I carried on trying to write, mostly pony books and things like that as a kid. And then I got a bit older, and I went into academia and kind of didn't really write creatively so much for a while. And I guess I kind of, because my dad was also a writer. He didn't write science fiction and fantasy. He wrote kind of gritty, realistic fiction, but he published 2 books of short stories. And then kind of after he passed away, I kind of sort of started to feel like, well, he always believed in my writing, so maybe I should try and do something with this.
Sure,
and
yeah.
So about 4 or 5 years ago, I started submitting stories a bit more seriously.
Oh, that's good. And then now you've got a career. Obviously, you have a day job, because selling a short story isn't going to pay the bills very long.
Yes.
So what's your day job, and a little bit what you do on that?
Sure. So I work in the university library service at Cardiff University, basically. So yeah, just kind of obviously working in a library is a great thing to do if you're a writer, because you've got access to so many books and journals. Yeah, and it's a very nice place to work.
For sure.
Yeah.
Are you pretty much content with writing in speculative fiction, or are you going to move around, or are you like?
No, I think the speculative area is kind of where I'm likely to stay. I would have
Yeah.
thought, yeah.
And you like the fantasy side or the sci-fi side?
A little bit of both. I kind of, I like the sort of perhaps the kind of more softer, more social end of sci-fi, kind of near future stuff. Yeah, and kind of the more contemporary, slightly real world grounded fantasy.
Right.
Normally. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then yourself, Dan, are you able to do art in your day job as well as, or how's it work for you?
Well, art is my day job.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I quit engineering back in 2017. Then it took a few years to get going, but back in 2020, I started getting, soon after I entered the competition, I started getting a few more jobs. And yeah, now last year in 2021, I really started picking off a bit and started getting more clients, and it's all been really fun so far. So yes, I do get a chance to use art in my day job.
Oh, that's way cool. And then yourself, Michael. So what's your day job versus your writing?
So I actually write as a day job, not exclusively novels yet. I'm a journalist. So, I mean, it's a kind of double-edged sword. It's good that I write for a living, which of course is my passion. But at the same time, then after a day of writing, I have to then sit down and write more on my personal projects. So that my brain, when it gets to the point where my brain is melted, I then have to summon the motivation and wit to sit down from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. and write on my own stuff, which obviously takes its time. But yeah, I don't think I could ever work with anything else. I was put on this earth to write.
Well, that's good. So you said journalism?
Yes, journalism.
So what kind of journalism?
So it used to be sports journalism up until I moved to Sweden, and I'm currently based in Sweden. So there it's actually quite a lot of US-based news and sort of entertainment news and old celebrity stuff. We have quite a lot of stuff on like celebrities from like the 60s and 70s, and then translate articles from Swedish into English. And so, yeah, a little bit of everything. I also do some stuff with our video channels, which is also fun. So yeah.
Oh, good. So you guys we just finished the week-long workshop. We have 2 writers and 1 artist here. So, and this is where you can all jump in and stuff like that. So what has been the highlight for you? And you guys can answer however you want to, in whatever sequence. So what's been the highlight for you this week?
For me, it's absolutely been meeting everyone here and hanging out with everyone. Like, I've loved the presentations. I've loved meeting all the judges and everyone at Author Services and Galaxy Press. And yeah, the friends I've made here, like, I'm going to keep in touch for as long as I can.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting to meet so many kind of talented and creative people who are also really supportive. I think everyone's been really, really nice and kind of open and generous towards each other here. Yeah, and getting to learn from the judges. I mean, I think Tim and Jodie, you could just listen to them speak all day, couldn't you?
Yeah. And they're very knowledgeable and just they're so appreciative of the new, the new wave of pros that they're welcoming into the industry. So that's great.
I would love to give an answer that you haven't heard before, but my answer is everything about this has been incredible. From meeting the judges and getting to learn from their wisdoms over the past week, which is literally something that money can't buy, and the fact that you guys at Galaxy Press and Author Services have treated us, I said it last night at the gala, but you have treated us like rock stars. Like, we've been sort of looked after to the 10th degree. It really has been amazing. And then it culminated in the gala itself last night, which was everything you could sort of imagine and more, with a proper red carpet, and it was just everything that's happened has been done so professionally, and it's something I could get used to. I hope I'm,
don't.
Yeah. I'm going to try not to, but I definitely could.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
the dessert served in that gala is just mwah, so lovely. I'd come back again just for that.
Just for the dessert,
Everything
yeah.
else is a bonus. A very nice bonus though.
So any particular part of the awards ceremony that you just like went, this was the highlight, this was so cool?
Wow, I don't know. It felt like such a blur in a way because it's really huge, and the Taglian complex, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Is gorgeous.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of almost went past in a blur to me. It's
Yeah. The Taglian is, we've been there, this is our third time, and we love that venue. The whole setup on the red carpet, with the media that's there. And then because we had the major wire services that covered it, but we also had Xinhua, which is the biggest wire service for the Orient. They're covered it in all the photos and stuff like that, and they're huge. So it was, and then a lot of stuff in between. So it was really good on that. And then we had, I think it's 3.8 million people listening and or watching to the broadcast last night. So that was pretty fun. What did you think of the general as the keynote speaker?
Yeah, I thought he was an extremely good speaker, and extremely good in that everything he was saying, and the link between science fiction and real life future, it's sort of like something that I had never really thought about before. I never considered it that much before. But then when someone says it, it's like that is 100% true. Like, it's exactly true. And it was just good to be able to sit and listen to someone with such incredible life experience. And
it's one of the ones that helped create the Space Force for the United States.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's mind-boggling for someone from Kettering Town, England, to sit and listen to the general speaking. That was just, it was a pleasure.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. He seemed like such a lovely chap. I spoke to him a little bit, like just afterwards on stage, and he seemed really, really lovely. And I didn't expect him to be such a down to earth and just really nice guy.
He's a very, very nice guy. Very nice guy. So on the workshop week itself, there were the essays that were gone over. There were the Tim and Jody, obviously, and then there were the other guest lectures. So what were some? I don't want to say like what was the highlight, but what were some of the highlights for you, Jess?
Oh wow! I mean, obviously, I think everyone says the 24-hour story is a real experience, and it was. Obviously, it's a lot of pressure, but it's great to kind of feel that actually, I can create something like that under that kind of pressure, and obviously getting to read the stories of the other winners as well was brilliant. Yeah.
That's good. And then yourself?
So I would say something that I've really, really appreciated this week is listening to these sort of titans of the field, Dean Wesley Smith, Jody Lynn-Nye, Tim Powers, and all the rest of them. And what I loved most is that all of them gave different bits of advice, sometimes contrasting, conflicting bits of advice. And they put.
Should you promote your book at a panel or not?
Exactly. Like, they presented their bits of information, their bits of advice, but in a real sort of a really genuine way, where it's like each person is literally telling you what has worked for them, and you can sort of pick bits out that you think, that seems a good idea. That probably might not work for me, but that one would work for me, right? And then you can build your sort of, you add it to your arsenal and build your own, or use it to help build your own career. Yeah, and that's, like I say, when I said earlier that money can't buy that sort of expertise and tutoring, it can't. Like, when are you going to get that many fiction legends, in the same room for 5 days straight of intensive, just here are the secrets to what we do? You can't buy that.
Good. And then on the Illustrator side, I mean, there's definitely some legends there that you had.
Oh yes, yes. I never expected to be hugging Larry Elmore and calling him my art grandpa, but here we are. Some of my favorite parts was the figure drawing. We had these really amazing models come in, and they were so expressive, and they're in these amazing sci-fi costumes, and they were so fun. I love that. And Barry Jackson.
For those of you who don't know, describe what that means, because these guys are writers and they don't know that.
Yeah, I have no
kind of
idea.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so figure drawing is just a timed figure drawing exercise. The models will pose in a certain position. They'll hold it for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes we do longer, but here we had like a mix of shorter poses.
Yes, they have two people that are dressed in science fiction costumes, and they hold still for that, and then you get to sketch it.
Yeah, that's right. Bay Jackson, she gave us a little assignment to do from that. It was take one of the figure drawings being inspired by them and make that into more of an advanced sketch, somewhat going into a full illustration. Unfortunately, we couldn't do the full illustration in the workshop this year because of COVID restrictions. We couldn't quite get the reference shooting material in. So we took it as far as we could. And yeah, just her feedback, and she was really nice too. I like meeting her.
Yeah, B. Jackson, she did illustrated children's book for Michelle Obama that hit the New York Times, and then she did one also for.
Was that one for LeBron James?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she did
that's
that one
right.
there for LeBron James. Yeah, she was the grand prize winner for volume 24. She's just amazing. She's just the queen of children book illustration.
Yeah, she's got such an expressive line. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. So that's great, and she's going to love hearing that. You said so. Larry is your art father.
Art grandpa.
Art grandpa. Yeah, okay, art grandpa. And then B. Jackson.
Echo and Laz, they made a really great team, and it was
Yeah.
really nice whenever they were together. They finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
And you just hear Echo shout, "I've already told them that story." But yeah, they shared so much information, and I'm just so appreciative.
That's good. Now, one thing that's really, I want to see if it came across to you, like the judges, this is one of their highlights every year, coming here and talking to you. So what ideas did you have coming into it, and how has that changed or remained the same, or now that we're at the other end of the workshop week?
I can start.
Yeah.
So I think coming into it, my big, not flaw, but something I've struggled with quite a lot is writing short stories, right? Like even my story for Writers of the Future is like 40 words beneath the max limit. And just condensing it down to sort of that sweet spot where you can, actually have like a whole world worth of magazines who potentially could be markets for you. That I have struggled with, and I think this week I've not only learned a lot of techniques to really, really help with that, but also proved that I could do it in the 24-hour story. Right? And so that was something before, especially with the 24-hour stories, I was nervous. I was like, I just can't write that short. Some of the winners, their winning stories were like 4,500 words, which is doable in a 24-hour period, even if the quality isn't as high as if you have time to plan. But for me, it was like I can't do that. I can't write a self-contained story in 24 hours, but I obviously could because I did. So I think that for me, that was something that I'll definitely take away of something, an ability that I didn't know I had, and I definitely have cultivated over this week with the help of the judges.
Oh, good. What about yourself, Jess?
I think partly kind of bouncing off something Michael said earlier about all the kind of the different pieces of advice from the different judges. I think it's when you're kind of starting out as a writer, you want to kind of look for, this is the right way to do it, and if I follow these steps, I will get published, I will write a good book. So yeah, kind of learning from them that these are obviously all people who are huge in the writing industry and kind of have produced such brilliant work, but there isn't one right way to do it, and I think that's it's really good to know.
Good. And yourself?
Yeah, same on the art side. It's really kind of opened my eyes to different avenues of making and different ways of creating that I haven't considered before.
Yeah, it's that's something that's really good, is by having all the various perspectives of art or of writing that you're given. And it's one thing is that like you were saying, Jess, I just want to do, if I do A, B, C, D, then E's going to come out and people are going to go, the next one.
Yeah.
And which would be great. But I think one thing is developing your own voice.
Mm.
You know, what's your voice, whether it's as an illustration voice or as a writing voice. Any comments about that? You know, developing your own voice, how this has helped. Not necessarily you now have a voice because of this workshop, but that you have some more direction to actually help you achieve that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of stuck with me that a lot of the advice given by the judges was focused much more on kind of story and craft at that sort of slightly more macro level. Because a lot of writing advice kind of focuses on the prose level and says things like don't use adjectives, which can kind of end up homogenizing things a little bit. You
Yeah.
kind of end up with this very kind of workshop style. And so, yeah, kind of the idea that actually that's not necessarily what you need to focus on. It's the story where maybe you want to focus your efforts at this level, and kind of trust that your prose will sound like you and it will take care of itself a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So my one, it was Dean Wesley Smith. Something he said to me when we were having a drink at the bar, as you do at Writers of the Future, just casually have a beer with Dean Wesley Smith.
Yeah.
And he was sort of impressing upon the importance of not editing everything 1,000 times to try and reach this level of perfection that doesn't exist. And his take on it is the first draft you write is the closest you're going to come, of course, to your own voice, because it is literally you're just kind of writing it as it comes to your head, and you're not going through it with any sort of analytical, critical, I must take away these, or like Jess said, I'm not going to use adjective here. You know, so to stick as close to that as you possibly can. And I know I normally work at the other end of the spectrum, so this is going to be difficult for me to do, to really sort of switch off that part of the brain that says you should definitely edit that paragraph 6 times before you write the next one. But that seems like very sound advice, and it's definitely something I'm going to try now. And not only that, but it helps you write a lot faster too.
Yeah,
when you're not editing as you go, and you can just write, and then go back and just fix what needs to be fixed. You know, small changes. And there's a time and a place for it, but yeah, that was very good advice, I felt.
That's good. Yeah, that's when he first won way back 38 years ago, because his whole thing was he was trying to emulate L. Ron Hubbard as a writer, because Hubbard had a composition speed of 92 words a minute, and so so in A.E. Van Vogt, I don't know if you met his wife. She was there last night, Lydia Van Vogt. She was sitting next to Kevin Anderson.
Yes, yeah.
She's 95 years old now.
Yeah.
But he told a story once, watching Hubbard write a story. He'd put the paper in the typewriter and he looked towards the wall and he'd start typing. And as he was creating the story, he'd be typing, because he was able to type 140 words a minute, but his composition was that. So it was for him. He also said too, you have to get to the point, you know, he said you got to throw away your first million words, you know, to build up a voice, but to also build up where you're comfortable with the words coming out, so then you can get into thinking those things, so that you don't have to get into all the editing, because now, but you don't, it's something that's acquired. You have to learn that. You know, Dean writes 70,000 words a month that he publishes in his magazine.
Yeah, Dean actually was telling us his challenge for this year was to write a short story a day every day for the year. And like that just blows my mind. It's like the 24-hour challenge that we all geared up for and stressed over. He does that every day as well as living a life. Like I just had those two things. How do they compute? But he does it, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And then obviously, you know, I would guess, you know, almost 100% of them get sold to magazines. So it's not, he's writing good quality stories.
Yeah.
And that's at a rate of 1 a day. So
yeah, both he and his wife, they're both judges, but they're both just brilliant writers and editors. And I mean, he's written millions of words. So he's got a voice, he's got his connection with the typewriter, so he's not thinking about what he's typing there. So like the quick brown fox, okay, the quick brown jumped over didn't jump over lazy river. The lazy fox jumped over the quick, what was it? So getting into that self-correcting stuff, but he's now through that, so he can just like conceive the idea and he's just typing it, you know, so he's that fast like that.
Yeah. I dream of being that fast and productive.
Well, who knows? You just keep on doing it.
Yeah.
You just got to do it and do it and do it, and then you get that. So What's the fiction scene like in UK?
Oh, I can talk about the book covers.
Okay, good.
So the book covers in the UK there is a very significant style between here and the US. I think the US is starting to trend towards what the UK is doing, and the UK often has a lot more graphic style covers. They're a lot less illustrative, which for me, I prefer the illustrations, but okay, that's what the market's doing. And yeah, it's really interesting to see the trends go, and you'll see illustrators like Sam Weber, who does have a very more graphical and 2D compositional style, even though he renders in a very, very good way. I will still see his covers come through in the UK, but with other artists like Dan Dos Santos, I won't see his adult fantasy novels come through, but I will see his YA fantasy novels come through. So YA middle grade, those still remain quite more illustrative, but the adult significantly more graphic.
Wow. Okay. And then, I mean, you're a librarian, so you know everything about books. So, what do you see is the trend there in on fiction?
Well, interestingly, I think there have been a number of new short fiction magazines in the UK that have come out just in the past couple of years.
Oh, that's cool.
Cosmas Infinities, Wild Blood magazine, Gwyllion magazine, which are all solely speculative fiction. And there wasn't really a huge number of magazines doing that before. So it's great to see that kind of emerging market for short SFF in the UK, which is,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I hope they carry on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when did you leave UK to go to Sweden?
2018, so 4 years ago.
Okay, it's not that long ago. So, so you're in Sweden now because of family?
Work and family, yeah. So I moved there originally for work, to take the job as a journalist there, and then family. In fact, my original plan was just to stay somewhere between 6 months to a year, and then life happened, and 4 years later, I'm there with a 1-year-old son, and there's no way back. Now, so I think I'll be there for the provisional future at least.
So then, when you were in the UK, what was the scene like for you, fiction scene?
So I guess I can only really speak to within fantasy. I would say just because that was the sort of area that I always liked to read, and that was also the area that I was aspiring to be a writer within, that in that genre. So that I kept quite a good eye out for what was new, what was coming out, and I quite like that we do seem to have some very strong fantasy writers in the UK. Obviously, Joe Abercrombie I guess he's quite big here as well. It was quite a while ago that he came out with the First Law trilogy. But there's also people like Mark Lawrence, and there's a couple of others as well who I started to read their books just as I was beginning my sort of take it seriously phase, and that was good to see that it wasn't just America, because obviously there's so many amazing sci-fi fantasy writers in the US, or American sci-fi fantasy writers. So it was really sort of encouraging for me to see there are some equally good ones in the UK, and that are being newly published, like sort of aren't from the 80s and 90s, but are springing up now. So it's like, well, that's sort of opens up the door, at least shows the path to what can be done, if that's if that's what you aspire to be.
Cool. And then on the workshop, we had all the various essays also by, I think it was one by Algis Bodas and several by Hubbard that he wrote in the 30s and 40s, but then the instructors still use them. They said some of the stuff might be dated in terms of execution, but the principles remain just as valid now as when they were first written. So Michael, any particular essay that stands out that you look at, okay, this really makes sense to me, this I can see how this will help me?
Okay, so I liked the suspense, the essay on the art of building suspense, and because that's not something I really think about too much when I write. So of course it comes sort of naturally when you're writing tense scenes. It can come, but to look at it from a more analytical standpoint and actually break down the sort of what it includes, and then obviously like I said, you can kind of almost reverse engineer it. And if you know what it consists of, then you can apply it, think of a scene and okay, I'm going to build this scene to be suspenseful. So that one was good. And I also liked the L. Ron Hubbard essay on, I can't remember what the title was, but that was about being productive, sort of how your word flow and how many words you're getting out. And as I said, for someone who traditionally has lent more on the sort of, I'm going to write 300 words today, but they're going to be perfect, as opposed to I'm going to write 2,000 words today, and probably 1,600 of them will be very good words. But
the Manuscript Factory one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. The Manuscript Factory. And so that almost, along with everything else that's been sort of compiled, is bouncing around my brain at the moment from the week, that will help me, I think, moving forward to be more productive as a writer, which is key if you want the same sort of output, or if you want a professional output. In any case, it's very important.
Good. And Jessica, do you have anything that?
I'm going to agree on the suspense essay. It was actually interesting to kind of look at that and think that you don't only have to be writing kind of a horror or thriller type of story to apply that, and that you can weave it into your work in different ways as well.
Yeah, what makes a person want to turn the page?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good. And any particular essays or datums that you got from the Illustrator workshop?
Yeah, for sure. There was this one about intent in his art book, how intent is always put before the technical skill of an illustration.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy I got to hear that again, because I forget it. And a lot of people forget a lot of lessons, and they just need to keep on hearing it.
It's so true, because it's art, which applies for both writing as well as illustration. Art is the quality of communication.
Yeah.
And so it's like I went over today at the workshop, it's like in order to communicate, you have to have intention and attention in order to get some type of communication. So if you don't have that intent there.
Especially the communication of an emotion or a feeling, it's just so important, especially when you're like trying to attract the attention for like these amazing stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you see, Jess, as your future with respect to writing? Where do you want to take it?
Well, I would like to continue writing short stories as well, but I've had one novel come out last year. I'm kind of working on the second one now, and I would like to kind of build a career in writing novels.
Good. So now tell me about this novel.
Okay.
I didn't know to ask that question, so now you mentioned it, I'm asking it.
So it's called The Word. It came out in October last year through New Welsh Rarebite, and kind of had a slightly unusual path to publication in that it was originally a novelette, won the New Welsh Writing Awards in 2019. And then the publishers kind of came back to me and said, well, we'd like to make this into something a bit longer. Have you got any other short stories? And I'd sort of, in the meantime, over lockdown, I'd kind of had this idea for a continuation and written it thinking I would just put it on my website or something. So I went, I haven't got any short stories I can give you at the moment, but I have got this, and sent it off. And they liked it, luckily, and they published the full length thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So everybody knows that when you get a book published and it's actually got paper in between the cover, you send it to the Writers of the Future so we can put it in the library.
Of course.
Just saying.
Yeah.
And then Dan, so what do you see as, you seem like you've got some trajectories like has been building, and you're like locked and loaded and it's going good. Are you going to keep the same thing, or do you want to be able to expand into other aspects of art, or what?
Yeah, I definitely like to be able to expand into other things. I still want to keep the illustration going. Like the book illustration is just what I enjoy the most. Like I love reading some artists will complain that they have to read the entire story before they can illustrate it. That's my favorite part. So,
and it makes a difference. It really makes a difference when you get a cover that actually matches the story.
Yeah, for sure. But as well as that, I'd like to start working on some of my own projects, like Michael Talbot, who's one of the visiting alumni. I think he won 8 years ago. Yeah. He was speaking how he has an old friend who's his art rival, and they keep on challenging each other and pushing each other. And I love Michael. He's such a great guy. He's such a fun energy. He's actually challenged me to put on my own gallery show by the end of the year, and I think I might take him up on that. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Who knows? Only 8 months left, so I better get cracking.
Yeah, that was a fun story that he gave about his. So I know him when he's going to try to do more. So I'm going to outdo him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's great. And then yourself, where do you see yourself going now in your writing?
Yeah, so I am in the process of writing a novel which is actually set in the same world as the story that won Writers of the Future. So that was almost like a window into that world, and I'm in the process of writing a full length with the same character, sort of from the beginning almost, and going there. It was actually. The late David Farland was actually working with me he wanted to pitch that because he'd just become an editor at Bain Books, so he wanted to take that on as one of his projects there, obviously just before his unfortunate untimely passing. So at the moment I'm kind of still trying to salvage that slash sort of write as many words as I can, because you can't sell a book until you actually have a finished book, which is always good to know. A bit of advice there for you kids. Yeah, but yeah, so that's the aim, and then that's a series actually I'm working on. So hopefully, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, you'll go into some bookstore and there'll be a load of epic fantasy books by Michael Panter. Yes.
Hey Michael, you looking for an illustrator for those there?
I actually would love an illustrator for that. Although I'm going to have Brett Stump will be extremely betrayed.
Oh, that's entirely fair.
If I throw him under the bus, but if
his
Brett,
heart bleeds for Brett.
Yeah, if Brett should for some reason not be able to if he's too busy, he's too successful, I'll come knocking. Because you're clearly not successful enough as it is doing books for Brandon Sanderson and Warhammer. So yeah.
I appreciate that, but I don't want to step on Brett's toes. He's so good.
Yeah, he's great.
So now you've been working becoming writers and an illustrator we've already established, for a considerable part of your life. So one thing that people listen to this podcast, they're aspiring, and sometimes people, I just can't deal with all this rejection. I can't do, the things that they feel the things that they feel they can't survive, that they can't deal with. So, again, this is just going to be open to all three of you to answer, but things that you had to overcome and real things for you, which on the effect side of it was very real. It was overwhelming, and it was like it almost got the best of you. But then once you got through it, you look at, what was I thinking? So any stuff that the other writers or artists, that they're going through, that you can give them your own story that will turn into words of encouragement for them.
Yeah, I can go first. I can go first. I've got a couple of stories actually. I think the main one for me would be, and it really is very, very simple concept, but it's very easy to ignore / be blinded and not pay attention to the fact that rejection, especially within writing, is every bit as it is key, as in it's going to happen to everyone. There is not a single writer alive who has not been told no at some point in their life, right? There is,
and these judges that you're being taught, they still get rejected.
Exactly, yeah, and that was something Dean Wesley Smith said the other day. He still, admittedly, few and far between, but he does still get turned down. He can send a short story off and they say no, thank you. And so that was something that, coming into it, I don't think people accept or realize that it's how very, very normal it is, and it's not a mark on on your writing at all. I remember my first novel, when again after I decided to take writing seriously, I sent that off, and I was really happy with it. And I thought, well, this is as easy as that. I just got to wait for the agents or publishers to get back to me. And what's this? A letter of rejection, or an email of rejection? I was like, they're mad. They're blind. How can they not see this talent? And I think you look at that, and when you're sending it out, and you're so happy with it, especially the first time, the second time, you're like, I'm not doing anything wrong. This must be good. This must be good because I believe I'm good, and people tell me the writing's good. And the thing is that you literally, again, it sounds really simple, but you just have to keep going and going and going and going. And I promise you, if you write 11 books, I don't care how good you think you are when you write the first one, if you write 11 books, your 11th book is going to be 10 times better than your first book. After a while, you can begin to see the flaws in the books when you look back on them and say, I understand now why that wasn't publishable, or why it wasn't, it could be a really good story and your writing's still good, but the small details make very, very big differences at the elite level. So I would say write and write some more, and just be proud of your rejections, because every time you get a rejection, that means you first have to have completed something to even get a rejection, and that's a step. You've taken a step. You get another rejection, that's another step, and eventually you write enough that you get good enough, and someone will publish. If you're dedicated enough, and it will happen.
Just as a point, and then I'll get back to you here a second, Jess. Preston Dennett was a winner 3 or 4 years ago. He had been entering since when the first contest first came out, and he's got the record of 47 entries in the contest before he won. And he went through a period, he was just like, that's it, I can't do this anymore. I'm terrible. He got rid of all of his science fiction books. It was a total, for him, a defeat. He said, okay, that's it, I'm done. He saved his Rise of the Future. I said, I couldn't get rid of my Rise of the Future books, but everything else I got rid of. And then he said how when he found out from Dean Wesley Smith that the editors of the magazines talk to each other, and they were saying, what do you think of this one guy here? And he was starting to build up a name. They were just like, hey, he's ready. Who's going to be the first one to publish him? And they're going back, who's going to be the first one to publish him? And then he disappeared. He stopped writing. And he found out later that there was a workshop or something that Dean Wesley Smith was given. He was talking about the Topanga Canyon story, about this guy from Topanga Canyon